The ship came silently from the black sky, its engines glowing faintly against the cold light of the distant star. Captain Alex stood on the observation deck, eyes fixed on the landing zone. He had been sent to this remote, wild planet to investigate strange life forms. But nothing could have prepared him for what he was about to see. When the landing bay doors opened, a small group of alien cubs tumbled out. They were unlike any creatures Alex had seen before. Their fur shimmered in strange patterns, changing colors like a living rainbow under the alien sun. Their eyes were large, intelligent, and cautious. They moved with surprising speed, their claws clicking softly on the metal floor. The cubs stopped suddenly, sniffing the air. They growled low, a sound that was almost musical but carried a sharp warning. Alex could see they were scared. He knew that first contact would not be easy. These creatures had not yet learned to trust humans, and judging by their posture, they were ready to fight if threatened. "Easy now," Alex whispered to himself. He crouched down, keeping his hands visible and calm. "I don't want to hurt you." The cubs backed away a few steps, their tails low, twitching nervously. One of the smaller cubs stumbled over a rock and froze, looking at Alex with wide eyes. The human extended his hand slowly, offering a gesture of peace. The cub tilted its head, curious but still wary. Alex had studied alien biology for years. He knew their first instinct was survival, not friendship. And these cubs, though small, were strong and clever. They could easily outrun him, disappear into the dense alien forest, or even attack if they felt threatened. The human needed a way to gain their trust. He had tried calling them with soft noises, whistles, even the sounds of their home planet that he had learned from scanners. Nothing worked. The cubs remained still, keeping their distance, growling occasionally to warn him away. Then Alex noticed something strange. The cubs sniffed the air repeatedly, their movements almost synchronized. He realized they were reacting not to him, but to the smell of the rations in his bag. He opened it carefully, showing them the alien food they usually ate. Leaves, strange fruits, and some processed protein cubes. The cubs stared, then turned their noses up. Not one took a bite. Alex sighed. "I thought this might work," he muttered. He had faced dangerous creatures before, but never one so stubborn. The cubs were small, yes, but their behavior suggested intelligence far beyond normal predators. They were choosing and refusing to eat. As the sun set, the temperature dropped sharply. The cubs huddled together for warmth, their tails curling around their bodies. Alex sat a few meters away, watching them carefully. He realized the situation was more serious than he first thought. If they did not eat, they would not survive long. But forcing them was out of the question. Then an idea struck him. Earth-style food. Simple broth, something gentle, familiar, and comforting. Something he could cook with the ingredients he carried from his ship. It was risky. These were alien cubs. After all, they might reject it entirely. But it was the only option left. Alex moved quickly, gathering his supplies. He set up a small portable stove and poured water into a container. He added dried vegetables and a small amount of protein powder. The aroma began to fill the landing bay, and he watched closely as the cubs perked up their ears. Their tails twitched slightly, but they did not approach. "Come on, little ones," Alex said softly. "Just try it. You might like it." The cubs shifted, one stepping slightly forward, then another. They sniffed the air, their eyes wide, but fear still held them back. Alex knew he had to be patient. Trust was not given. It had to be earned. And in this strange, wild place, trust was the difference between life and death. Night fell completely. The stars above were bright and cold, reflecting on the metal floor. The cubs laid down in a circle, tails low, glancing occasionally at Alex. He stayed nearby, quiet, watching over them. The first day had been tense. No bites had been taken, no claws had been drawn, but a connection, however small, had begun. Alex smiled faintly. "Tomorrow," he whispered, "we try again." In the darkness, the cub's eyes shimmered faintly, catching the starlight. Something had changed, an unspoken curiosity. They had seen him cook. They had smelled something new. And deep inside, instincts told them this human was not like others they had met. But would they trust him enough to eat? The answer would not come easily. The first night had only just begun, and the story of survival, patience, and a strange bond between human and cub was only beginning to unfold. To be continued. The next morning, the alien sun rose slowly over the jagged horizon, casting long shadows across the landing bay. The cubs stirred in their small huddle, tails twitching nervously. Captain Alex was already awake, quietly preparing his small stove and ingredients. Today, he hoped, would be different. He set a pot of water to boil and added the dried vegetables he had brought from Earth. A small packet of protein powder followed, dissolving slowly into the warm liquid. The smell of cooking filled the air. For the cubs, it was a strange, new scent, something neither sweet nor bitter, but oddly familiar, almost comforting. One of the cubs raised its head, sniffing the air. Its ears twitched, and it stepped a little closer, eyes locked on the steaming pot. Another cub followed, but just barely, keeping a safe distance. Alex stayed very still, hands visible, his voice soft and steady. "See? Nothing to worry about," he whispered. "Just a little taste. It's safe." The first cub took a tentative step forward, then stopped. Its nose twitched violently as it inhaled the aroma. It seemed both curious and confused. The other cubs watched closely, their eyes wide. A low, almost hesitant growl escaped from one of the larger cubs, part warning, part intrigue. Alex carefully ladled a small portion of the broth into a shallow dish and placed it near the closest cub. The cub sniffed again, lowered its head, and licked the liquid once, then pulled back. Its tail twitched sharply. Alex held his breath. "Almost," he murmured. The cub licked again, slowly this time. Another small lick. Its tail began to move slightly, a tiny flick at first, almost invisible. The other cubs inched closer, curiosity growing. They were watching closely, learning from their companion. It was as if they were saying, "If it's safe for him, maybe it's safe for us too." Then disaster. A sudden gust of wind from the open landing bay doors blew across the broth, spilling a little onto the metal floor. The cubs jumped back, startled. Alex froze, knowing that any sudden movement could set back all their progress. "It's okay," he said gently, keeping his hands in view. "It's okay. It didn't hurt you." Slowly, the cubs returned to the broth, sniffing carefully, tails still low but twitching more now. One of the larger cubs reached out with a paw, touching the liquid, then quickly recoiled. Alex smiled faintly. Progress. Small, but real progress. He tried something new. He dipped his fingers into the broth and let the cub sniff his hand. The first cub sniffed curiously, then licked his fingers lightly. Its tail twitched excitedly, a tiny wag forming. Another cub followed, licking more confidently. The flick of tails grew faster, a clear sign of growing trust. Alex laughed softly, the sound low but full of relief. "Good, very good," he said. "See? Nothing to fear." As the morning passed, the cubs began to eat more boldly. Their movements were careful, but curiosity overcame caution. They licked, nibbled, and finally took small bites. Alex stayed patient, never forcing them, only encouraging with soft words and gentle gestures. But the lesson of trust was not the only challenge. The planet itself was harsh, with strange, unpredictable weather and unknown predators. Every sound outside the landing bay made the cubs freeze, ears alert. Alex realized that earning their trust was only the beginning. Survival would test both him and the cubs in ways he could not yet imagine. By midday, the cubs had eaten more than he expected. Their tails were higher now, flicking and wagging more freely. One of the smallest cubs even climbed onto a low crate, looking down at Alex as if to say, "Thank you." "Not quite friends yet," Alex said softly, rubbing his face tiredly. "But getting there." Then something unexpected happened. The cubs began communicating in low, musical tones. It was not barking or growling, but a soft, melodic sound that seemed almost like laughter. Alex froze, listening closely. He had never heard this before. It was a form of communication, and he realized they were happy, not just eating. They were bonding. Yet, as progress was made, suspense lingered. The cubs had accepted the broth, but would it last? Could they fully trust this human, Or would fear return with the next gust of wind? The next strange noise outside the bay? Alex knew patience and observation would be his only tools. Rushing them could destroy everything he had worked for. As night approached, the cubs curled around each other, tails wrapped in gentle spirals, breathing softly. Alex cleaned the small kitchen area, preparing for the next attempt tomorrow. He understood that this was only the start of a long process, one that would demand creativity, courage, and a deep understanding of these alien creatures. Yet, he felt hope. In the simple act of cooking Earth-style broth, he had found a way into the hearts of the cubs. Something as ordinary as food had created the first bridge of trust between human and alien. And in this wild, dangerous world, trust was more valuable than any weapon. Alex settled down near the cubs, careful not to disturb them. Their tails twitched occasionally, a tiny but unmistakable sign of happiness. He whispered to himself, "Tomorrow we go further, and we learn more about each other." Outside, the alien sun dipped behind jagged rocks, casting long shadows across the landing bay. The cubs' eyes reflected the last light, curious, cautious, but slowly, unmistakably, filled with trust. Night fell over the jagged alien landscape, and the landing bay was bathed in a soft, silver glow from the distant stars. Captain Alex sat quietly near the cubs, watching them curl together in a tight huddle. Their tails twitched occasionally, small movements that betrayed curiosity and caution. The day had been a success. They had eaten some of the Earth-style broth, but the night was a different story. The silence of the planet was strange. Alex had worked on many alien worlds, but this one was different. Even the wind seemed alive, whispering through jagged rocks and alien trees. Every sound was amplified in the stillness. He could hear the faint clatter of claws against metal from outside the landing bay. The cubs perked up their ears, eyes wide and alert. Alex knew that their senses were sharper than his own. They could hear predators approaching long before he could, and they could sense danger in the faintest vibrations of the ground. He realized that the cubs were not only intelligent, they were survivors, born to navigate a hostile world. Suddenly, one of the cubs lifted its head and made a soft, melodic sound. It was not a growl, not a bark, but something in between. The other cubs responded with similar tones, creating a quiet, musical conversation. Alex leaned closer, curious. It seemed as if the cubs were speaking to each other, discussing something he could not understand. "Are you talking about me?" he whispered, half joking, half serious. The cubs' tails twitched faster. One of the larger cubs stepped toward Alex, sniffing cautiously. Then it froze, ears flat, body tense. A faint rustling came from the shadows outside the bay. Alex held his breath. Something was moving in the darkness. Something alive. Predator or prey? He could not tell. The cubs, however, did. Their eyes followed the movement, muscles tensed. Alex realized that he had underestimated their instincts. They were learning fast, reading the environment in ways he could not. He stood slowly, trying not to startle them. "It's okay. Nothing will get you here," he said softly, though he wasn't sure it was true. The alien world was full of unknowns, and trust could only take him so far. One of the cubs, the smallest one, crept closer to him. It sniffed his hand, then licked it lightly. Its tail flicked once, then again. Alex smiled. Despite the threat outside, the bond they had begun yesterday remained. Trust was forming, slow but real. The rustling grew louder. Shadows shifted across the metal floor. Alex strained his eyes, trying to see what lurked in the darkness. Then, with a sudden blur, a large alien creature shot past the landing bay door. It was massive, with long legs and sharp claws, moving like a predator born to hunt. The cubs reacted instantly. They leaped to their feet, growling low but controlled, tails stiff and alert. Alex realized that they were not afraid. They were ready. They had learned from him, and he had learned from them. Together, they were a team, small but capable. The creature paused, sensing movement inside the bay. It snarled, then retreated slowly, cautious of the cubs' unusual behavior. Alex exhaled slowly, relief flooding him. The cubs circled each other, tails flicking, their melodic noises rising in excitement. It was as if they were celebrating their first night together, safe and alert. Alex sat back down, exhausted but amazed. The cubs were more than just creatures. They were intelligent, aware, and capable of complex thought. He realized that patience, observation, and care had earned him not just trust, but respect. As the night deepened, the cubs settled again, curling in a protective circle. Their tails twitched occasionally, signaling dreams of the day's adventures and the strange new food they had discovered. Alex watched them, thinking about the challenges ahead. Tomorrow, they would need more than trust. They would need guidance, protection, and understanding. And the alien world outside was waiting. He whispered softly to Cubs, "We made it through tonight, but this is only the beginning. We have much to learn from each other and from this planet." The Cubs responded with quiet, musical tones, almost like a promise. Their tails flicked in rhythm, a gentle sign that the bond was growing stronger. Alex knew that this night, though filled with whispers and shadows, had changed everything. In the darkness, the stars reflected in their wide, intelligent eyes. The Cubs had learned to trust, even in the face of fear. And Alex had learned that sometimes survival depended not on strength alone, but on patience, empathy, and understanding. The wind whispered again through the jagged rocks, carrying the soft sound of the alien night. But inside the landing bay, warmth and trust had taken root. The Cubs' tails twitched once more, this time with quiet joy. The next morning, the landing bay was quiet, bathed in the soft glow of the alien sun. Captain Alex prepared the Earth-style broth once again, stirring carefully so the aroma would rise slowly into the air. Today felt different. He could sense the Cubs' curiosity stronger than ever. Their eyes followed every movement, tails flicking in small, nervous motions. Alex poured a small portion into a shallow dish and set on the floor, stepping back to give them space. The Cubs sniffed cautiously from a distance. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, the smallest cub, the one who had been the most cautious since their arrival, took a tentative step forward. Its nose twitched as it inhaled the scent. Alex held his breath. "That's it, just a little taste," he whispered. The cub lowered its head and licked the broth lightly. Its tail flicked, slowly at first, then faster, almost like a heartbeat. Encouraged, the second cub moved closer, sniffing the liquid carefully before trying a lick of its own. The tails of the cubs began to flick in small, joyful motions. Alex smiled, relief flooding him. "Good, very good," he said softly. "You like it, don't you?" The first cub tasted again, this time more boldly, lapping up the broth with cautious enthusiasm. The other cubs watched, their tails flicking higher and higher. One of the larger cubs finally stepped forward and began eating steadily, a small growl of pleasure escaping from its throat. Alex knelt quietly, observing. The trust was growing fast. The cubs had learned that he meant no harm. The simple act of sharing food, something ordinary on Earth, had created a powerful bond in this alien world. Then, a surprising moment. The cubs began to communicate in soft, musical tones, almost like a song. Alex tilted his head, listening carefully. It sounded joyful, playful, a clear sign that they were not just eating, but enjoying the experience. One of the cubs, the boldest of the group, nudged Alex's hand gently with its snout. He laughed quietly, extended his hand for it to sniff again. The cub licked his fingers before returning to the broth. Its tail wagged energetically now, a clear signal of happiness. The rest of the cubs followed suit. They moved closer, tails high, sniffing and tasting. The shyest cub, which had barely moved in the previous days, now approached confidently, licking the broth with small, deliberate licks. Alex watched in amazement as their tails twitched and wagged more and more. By midday, the cubs were eating steadily, tails wagging in excitement. The landing bay was filled with their low, melodic sounds of happiness and playful energy. Alex realized that the simple act of cooking Earth-style broth had done more than feed them. It had opened a bridge of trust, a bond that went beyond species or planet. Yet, suspense lingered. The cubs were still new to him, and the alien world outside was unpredictable. Every rustle of wind, every shadow on the jagged rocks could signal danger. Alex knew this trust would be fragile, but for now it held strong. After the meal, the cubs curled together in a pile, tails wrapped around each other, flicking occasionally. Alex sat nearby, cleaning the dishes and watching them. Their eyes followed his every move, full of curiosity and cautious admiration. The bond was real now, but he knew it was only the beginning. As night approached, Alex reflected on the day. The cubs had taken their first real step toward trust. They had tasted earth food, explored a new sensation, and begun to communicate in ways he could barely understand. It was a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. He whispered softly, "Tomorrow we go further. We learn more. We explore more together." The cubs responded with soft musical tones, as if acknowledging his words. Their tails wagged once more, flicking rapidly now, a joyful rhythm that echoed in the quiet landing bay. Alex smiled, feeling a surge of hope. The bond he had been building slowly, patiently, was finally showing signs of life. Outside, the alien sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the jagged landscape. The cubs' eyes reflected the fading light, curious, intelligent, and trusting. The human had succeeded in winning their first real moment of confidence. Tonight, the cubs would sleep a little easier, and Alex knew that tomorrow, the journey of survival, trust, and friendship would continue, with new challenges, new discoveries, and the ever-present unknowns of a wild alien world. The days passed slowly on the alien world. Captain Alex continued his careful routine, preparing Earth-style broth each morning and evening. The cubs now approached the aroma without hesitation. Their tails flicked and wagged freely, signaling excitement and trust. The bond that had begun with a single taste of broth was growing stronger, stronger than Alex had ever imagined possible with alien creatures. Each day, the cubs learned more about him, and he learned more about them. They were intelligent, curious, and playful. They began to imitate his movements. A slow stretch, a cautious step, a tilt of the head. Alex watched quietly, fascinated by the subtle ways they observed and learned. One morning, as Alex stirred the pot, he noticed something remarkable. The cubs were no longer just eating. They were communicating with him. Their soft, melodic tones seemed almost like words, simple sounds that conveyed curiosity, excitement, and sometimes even concern. Alex responded with gentle words and soft gestures, creating a quiet dialogue between species. After breakfast, Alex decided to test their trust further. He walked slowly around the landing bay, gesturing for the cubs to follow. One by one, they rose from their resting spots, tails held high, eyes fixed on him. They followed carefully, mimicking his movements, learning from his every step. Alex smiled. "You're ready," he whispered. "Not just for food, but for life here." The cubs' tails wagged faster, flicking back and forth with excitement. They nudged his hands, brushed against his legs, and even climbed onto crates to get closer to him. The simple act of cooking broth had created a ritual, a bridge of trust that extended into companionship. Yet, Alex knew that the alien world outside was not forgiving. Strange predators roamed the jagged terrain, and the weather could shift violently without warning. He had to teach the cubs to be alert, cautious, and aware while maintaining their trust. He began a small training routine, using gentle gestures and soft commands. The cubs learned quickly, responding to simple instructions like come, stay, and look. Alex noticed their tails flicking in rhythm with their actions, a sign of focus and happiness combined. The human cub team was forming, blending intelligence, instinct, and trust in a delicate balance. During one afternoon, the cubs discovered a small patch of alien flowers near the landing bay. Their curiosity was immediate. They sniffed, pawed, and explored, tails twitching in excitement. Alex observed quietly, allowing them to investigate safely. It was a teaching moment. The world was full of new experiences, and they could explore it safely with him. The bond grew stronger with each passing day. Broth became more than a meal. It was a ritual of trust, patience, and learning. The cubs now ran to him at the smell of cooking, tails wagging in pure delight. Alex realized that their happiness was contagious. He felt a deep connection forming, a silent promise that they would face the dangers of this world together. However, suspense lingered. The alien world was unpredictable. A sudden sound, a shadow, a gust of wind. Any of these could provoke fear in the cubs. Alex understood that trust was fragile, built over time with patience and care. One mistake, one loud noise, and the bond could be tested in ways he had not yet imagined. One evening, as Alex stirred the broth and the cubs circled him, he noticed their tails wagging in unison, a rhythmic display of trust and joy. He extended his hand, allowing the smallest cub to sniff and lick gently. The others followed, creating a quiet, harmonious scene. Alex smiled, feeling hope and pride. "Good job, little ones," he whispered. "You're learning. We're learning." The cubs responded with soft, musical tones, a language Alex could not understand fully, but could feel in his heart. The tails flicked and wagged energetically, signaling happiness and confidence. For the first time, Alex realized that the human spirit, patience, kindness, and creativity could forge bonds across worlds, across species, across the unknown. As night fell, the cubs curled together in a protective circle, tails entwined, resting comfortably near Alex. The stars above reflected in their wide, intelligent eyes. The human and alien cubs had created a small world of trust within a dangerous alien planet, a world where cooperation and empathy were stronger than fear. Alex whispered softly, "Tomorrow will bring new challenges, but we'll face them together." Outside, the jagged landscape of the alien world loomed, wild and unpredictable. But inside the landing bay, warmth, trust, and companionship had taken root. The cubs' tails flicked gently, then more energetically, signaling not just joy, but a bond that could withstand the test of survival and the perils of this strange new world. The alien sun hung low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the jagged rocks surrounding the landing bay. Captain Alex had just finished preparing the Earth-style broth for the evening when a sudden, sharp sound echoed from the rocky terrain outside. The cubs froze instantly, ears alert, tails stiff and twitching nervously. Alex's heart raced. He knew that sound. It was the growl of a predator, unlike anything he had encountered before. Large, muscular creatures, with jagged claws and sharp teeth, prowled the wildlands of this hostile planet. They were fast, intelligent hunters, and now they had sensed the presence of the cubs in him. The cubs circled each other, growling low but controlled, tails flicking in rapid motions. Alex knelt beside them, speaking softly. "Stay calm. Trust me. We can handle this." The first creature appeared at the edge of the landing bay, eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. It snarled, testing the humans and cubs. Alex quickly scanned the landing bay for anything that could serve as a barrier or distraction. But the cubs had already taken their positions instinctively. Smaller cubs huddled behind larger ones, and the largest cub moved forward, hackles raised, low growls resonating. Alex realized something incredible. The cubs were not afraid. They had learned to trust him, and that trust had given them confidence. He raised his voice, calm but commanding. "Now, move!" The cubs leaped into action. Their movements were swift, coordinated, instinctive yet guided by his presence. One lunge at the approaching predator, its claws striking, another circled behind to distract. The melodic tones they had used to communicate earlier became urgent calls, alerts, commands, and warnings to each other. Alex grabbed a nearby container, hurling it strategically to create noise and confusion. The predators hesitated, startled by the unexpected coordination between human and cubs. It was a moment of pure synergy. The alien instincts of the cubs combined with the strategic thinking of the human. One predator charged directly at the largest cub. With a precise movement, the cub dodged, then countered with a swipe of its paw. Alex, noticing an opening, guided the cubs with hand signals and soft whistles. Together, they forced the predators back, step by step, toward the jagged rocks where movement was restricted. The fight was tense, adrenaline high. Alex could hear his own heart pounding, but he remained focused, guiding the cubs, encouraging them. Their tails flicked wildly, signaling both alertness and bravery. They were working together, not just as predators or prey, but as a team formed by trust and mutual respect. Finally, after what felt like hours but was only minutes, the predators retreated into the darkness, sensing the unexpected strength of this unusual alliance. The cubs stood victorious, panting slightly, tails wagging now, a mixture of relief and pride. Alex exhaled slowly, kneeling beside them. "You did it," he said softly. "You were amazing. We survived together." The cubs responded with their melodic tones, soft, joyful, almost like laughter. They nudged his hands, brushed against his legs, and wagged their tails energetically. The bond between human and cubs had transformed from simple trust to true partnership. That night, as the stars reflected off the jagged rocks outside, Alex sat quietly, brushing a paw of the boldest cub. Their eyes met, wide and intelligent, filled with understanding. He realized something profound. Humanity's strength was not only in technology or weapons, but in creativity, patience, and empathy. The human mind had guided instincts, and together, they had overcome a threat that no predator could face alone. The cubs curled together, tails entwined, resting close to Alex. Their melodic tones were gentle, signals of safety and gratitude. The landing bay, once just a shelter, had become a small haven built on trust, courage, and collaboration. Alex whispered softly, "Tomorrow, we'll keep exploring, learning, and preparing. But tonight we celebrate. You taught me as much as I taught you." Outside, the alien world remained wild and dangerous, but inside the landing bay, a new kind of order had emerged. Trust had transformed into teamwork, fear into courage, and a simple meal of Earth-style broth had sparked an alliance that defied the dangers of the universe. The cubs' tails flicked and wagged, slower now as they settled, but full of life and promise. Alex knew that this bond, born from patience, understanding, and care, was a victory not just for survival, but for the enduring power of human ingenuity and heart. The alien sun had long disappeared behind jagged mountains, leaving the landing bay bathed in silver starlight. Captain Alex sat quietly near the cubs, watching them play. Their tails flicked and wagged energetically, moving like flags of joy and trust. The bond that had started with a simple taste of Earth-style broth had grown into something extraordinary, a partnership of survival, trust, and understanding. The cubs no longer hesitated around him. They approached freely, nuzzling his hands, brushing against his legs, even climbing onto crates just to be closer. Alex smiled, feeling the warmth of their trust. Their tails wagged faster at the sight of him, a clear sign of pure happiness. Yet, the alien world remained unpredictable. Strange sounds echoed from the jagged terrain, and distant shadows hinted at predators lurking. Alex knew they were not completely safe, but for the first time, he felt confident. The cubs were no longer just creatures to feed. They were partners, each aware of the other's presence, each ready to act when needed. Suddenly, a faint rustling came from outside the bay. Alex froze, his hand resting on the largest cub's fur. The cubs tensed too, ears alert and tails stiff. But instead of fear, Alex felt calmness. They had faced predators before and survived. He whispered softly, "Stay together. Watch me. Trust me." The rustling grew louder, but the cubs responded immediately. They circled around Alex, tails flicking in unison, their melodic tones rising in alert calls. A predator appeared, a massive creature with glowing eyes, teeth bared. It lunged toward the bay. Alex raised his hands, signaling the cubs. They acted instantly. The largest cub leaped forward, claws extended, while smaller cubs flanked it, creating a coordinated defense. Alex hurled a container to distract the predator, then ducked low, guiding the cubs with soft whistles. Together, they forced the creature back, step by step, until it retreated into the shadows. Breathing heavily, Alex looked at the cubs. Their tails wagged, not just flicking, but full wagging, a celebration of victory. The melodic tones they made were soft, musical, full of joy and relief. It was a sound of triumph, proof of the bond they had built together. "You did it," Alex said, voice filled with pride. "All of you. Amazing work." The cubs circled him, tails high and wagging energetically. One of the smallest cubs jumped onto his lap, licking his hands with playful enthusiasm. Alex laughed softly, stroking its fur. He realized that this was more than survival. It was an HFY moment, a clear testament to human adaptability, intelligence, and patience. One human, armed with understanding and creativity, had tamed fear and built trust with alien creatures where brute force alone would have failed. The landing bay, once quiet and tense, was now filled with the sounds of life. The cubs played together, tails wagging, leaping around Alex as he watched. Their eyes sparkled with intelligence and trust. They no longer saw him as a stranger. He was part of their world, a guide and a friend. Alex looked up at the stars, feeling a deep sense of achievement. He had survived the alien planet, bonded with intelligent creatures, and proved the value of patience, empathy, and creativity. Humanity's strength was not just in technology or weapons. It was in understanding, teaching, and building connections across worlds. For the first time since arriving, Alex felt truly at home. The cubs' tails wagged furiously, brushing against his legs, nudging him playfully. Their melodic calls rose into a joyful chorus, a harmony of celebration and trust. The night passed peacefully. The cubs curled around him, tails entwined, sleeping safely under the watchful stars. Alex stayed awake a little longer, thinking about the journey ahead. The alien world was still dangerous, but now he had allies, intelligent, loyal, and brave. Together, they could face whatever challenges came next. In that moment, Alex understood the full meaning of HFY. Humanity could thrive not just through strength, but through patience, kindness, and ingenuity. One human had earned the trust of alien creatures, survive against predators, and create a family in a world that seemed hostile at first. As dawn approached, Alex whispered softly to the cubs, "We'll explore, learn, and survive together." The cubs responded with playful nudges and wagging tails. Their trust was complete. Their tails flicked and wagged with pure joy, a symbol of victory, friendship, and enduring power of human heart and mind. Outside, the alien world waited, wild and unpredictable. But inside the landing bay, the bond between human and cubs had created a small paradise of trust and understanding. The story of survival, patience, and HFY triumph had reached its peak. Captain Alex smiled as the cubs licked his hands and wagged their tails around him. Humanity had proven itself again, not with weapons or domination, but with empathy, creativity, and courage. And in this small corner of the universe, tails wagged happily, hearts connected, and hope shone brighter than the distant stars. Weeks had passed since the cubs first arrived on the alien planet. The once wild and cautious creatures had grown confident and playful. Captain Alex watched as they moved around the landing bay, tails wagging freely, eyes bright with intelligence and curiosity. The Earth-style broth that had first won their trust had become a daily ritual, a symbol of safety, companionship, and learning. Alex smiled as the cubs raced around him, leaping onto crates, nudging his hands, and even playfully tugging at the edges of his uniform. Their trust was complete. What had started as a tentative bond over food had transformed into something far deeper, a family built from patience, empathy, and courage. But today was different. Alex had discovered signals from other human explorers, distant signals that suggested new lands, unexplored territories, and unknown life forms. The cubs gathered near him, tails flicking, sensing the shift in energy. Alex knew that the journey ahead would test them further. He had taught them to trust him. Now they had to trust the unknown as well. "Are you ready, little ones?" Alex whispered. The cubs responded with excited, melodic tones, tails wagging faster than ever. It was clear they were not afraid. They had faced predators, learned the rhythms of this world, and had become resilient, clever, and loyal. They were ready. The landing bay doors opened, revealing the jagged alien landscape bathed in soft morning light. Alex led the cubs outside, and for the first time, they ran freely across the rocks, tails high, bodies moving with both instinct and learned confidence. He marveled at their agility, how they moved in unison, reading each other's signals and responding instantly. As they explored the terrain, Alex noticed something remarkable. The cubs were not just surviving, they were thriving. Their curiosity had expanded beyond the safety of the landing bay. They sniffed alien plants, examined strange stones, and even approached distant creatures cautiously, tails flicking in calculated interest. Alex realized that their growth was extraordinary. They were learning, adapting, and understanding a world that had once terrified them. Suddenly, distant shadows appeared. New predators, larger and more cunning than before, stalked across the jagged rocks. Alex froze for a moment, but then remembered how far the cubs had come. They had learned from him. They had learned from each other. Together, they had faced danger and survived. Now they would face it again, but stronger, wiser, and united. He gave a soft whistle. The cubs responded instantly, tails flicking like synchronized flags. They positioned themselves around him, alert but calm, ready for whatever challenge came next. The predators advanced, but the cubs moved with precise coordination, their instincts guided by trust and human strategy. They distracted, dodged, and circled, while Alex directed movements, blending human ingenuity with alien instinct. Within moments, the predators retreated, confused and outmaneuvered. The cubs barked and chirped melodically, tails wagging wildly in celebration. Alex laughed, the sound full of pride and relief. They had not only survived, they had triumphed together. As the day ended, Alex and the cubs returned to the landing bay. The alien sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows and bathing the rocks in golden light. The cubs curled around him, tails entwined, resting peacefully. He reflected on the journey, the first wary sniff of broth, the first hesitant lick, the first night of whispers, and every trial that had followed. Each moment had built trust, courage, and resilience. Alex whispered softly, "We've come far, little ones, and we're ready for whatever comes next." The cubs responded with soft, joyful tones, tails flicking in agreement. They had learned that trust, patience, and collaboration could overcome fear and danger. They had learned that together, with ingenuity and courage, even the wildest worlds could be faced. Outside, the alien planet stretched endlessly, wild, untamed, and full of unknowns. But inside, the landing bay was a small sanctuary of trust, learning, and HFY triumph. Humanity had proven itself, not through dominance or fear, but through understanding, creativity, and empathy. One human had created a family, trained allies, and bridged the gap between species with nothing more than patience, food, and heart. As night fell, Alex looked at the cubs, tails wagging gently as they settled into sleep. "Tomorrow," he whispered, "we explore further, we survive, and we thrive." The cubs responded with a soft chorus of melodic tones, a symphony of trust, courage, and companionship. Their tails flicked happily, a testament to the power of patience, empathy, and human ingenuity. In this corner of the galaxy, humans had shown what they could achieve, not just survival, but connection, trust, and triumph over adversity. And so, with tails wagging and hearts full, Captain Alex and the cubs prepared for the journey beyond. The next adventure, the next challenge, and the next opportunity to prove that humanity's spirit could flourish anywhere, even in the wildest reaches of the universe.